Jack never thought working in a library could feel like stepping into a spaceship full of secrets. But the Grand Multispecies Archive on Station Veritas 9 was not an ordinary library. It was a place where knowledge from over 500 alien civilizations was stored, protected, and studied. Some called it the brain of the galaxy. Jack had come to the station for a simple job: assist with Earth-related documents, help translate old texts, and maybe make a few interstellar friends. He wasn't a scientist or explorer. He was just a human who loved books, history, and quiet places. But quiet didn't mean boring. Not here. On his third day, he noticed her. She was small, no taller than 4 feet, with soft, blue-purple skin, large dark eyes that seemed to see right through people, and short silver hair tied with a golden string. Her ears were small and curved, almost like tiny leaves. She wore a teal-colored robe with silver symbols stitched into the fabric. Every movement she made was silent, smooth, and careful, like she floated instead of walked. She was always near. When Jack was sorting data chips, she passed by it. Twice. When he helped stack scrolls on the tall shelves, he caught her watching him from behind the columns. And when he sat to rest, drinking warm grapefruit tea, he felt her eyes on him from across the hall. At first, he thought he was imagining it. Maybe it was just her job to monitor new workers. Maybe she just liked humans. But then, one morning, she walked right up to him. "You are Jack Raymond," she said softly, her voice almost like music. Jack blinked. "Yeah, that's me. You prefer mild tea, no sweetener. You dislike loud alarms. You have a small scar on your left ankle from falling off a bicycle at age 9, she said, looking at him calmly. Jack sat frozen. "How do you know that?" She tilted her head slightly, as if amused. "I am Scifi, Senior Catalog Keeper for Cultural Memory Streams. I monitor all data connections in this wing. Human files are interesting. But that stuff isn't in any file," Jack said carefully. Scifi smiled. A small one, but it felt warm. Some knowledge floats through more than data. Jack didn't know what that meant, but he didn't want to look confused, so he just nodded. "Well, nice to meet you, Scifi." "Likewise," she said. Then her eyes narrowed in thought. "You are curious. That is good. Curiosity writes the best chapters." Before Jack could ask more, she turned and walked away, her robe gently flowing behind her. From that moment on, things got weirder and more interesting. Every time Jack needed a specific archive, Scifi was already there, offering him exactly what he was looking for, sometimes before he asked. When he had a small cut on his finger from a sharp crystal edge, Scifi showed up with a tiny healing patch. "You humans have soft skin," she commented as she helped him, gently placing the patch on. Jack laughed nervously. "Yeah, I guess we do. You should protect it. Some might like it too much," she said, her tone playful, but hard to read. Was she teasing him? She often stood close, too. Not in a threatening way, but enough to make him notice her perfume, which smelled like fresh leaves after rain. She asked him questions about Earth, about human emotions, about dreams. Sometimes, the way she looked at him made Jack wonder, was this part of her job, or something else? Late one evening, when most of the lights in the archive dimmed and the station fell quiet, Jack stayed behind to finish cataloging some language chips. That's when he heard her voice again. "You work late. Very human. Very stubborn," she said from behind. Jack smiled and turned. "You keep popping up like a ghost." "A helpful ghost," she replied, stepping closer. Her large eyes sparkled. "Perhaps I like being around you." Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's unexpected." Scifi looked down, her tone softer now. "Unexpected things are often the most precious. Don't you agree?" Before Jack could respond, she placed a tiny crystal on the table beside him. "Tomorrow, this will help you understand something important," she said. "What is it?" Let's call it a preview. Then she walked off into the shadows of the tall archive shelves, her steps silent once again. Jack stared at the crystal, then at the place where she'd stood. Something was going on. Something more than just a strange alien being helpful. She knew things she shouldn't. She spoke like she was remembering things they hadn't done yet. And the way she looked at him. Maybe, just maybe, the 4-foot-tall alien librarian really was flirting. The next morning, Jack arrived early at the archive, but he wasn't thinking about his work. He was thinking about the crystal Scifi gave him. It was small, smooth, and shimmered with soft blue light. Jack had kept it in his pocket all night, wondering what it would do. He had seen many kinds of alien tech since coming to the station, but this one felt personal. He sat at his usual desk in the Earth section. The library was quiet, except for the gentle humming of floating shelves and sorting bots. Jack placed the crystal on the table and stared at it. Suddenly, it glowed brighter. A beam of soft light rose from it, forming a shape, a memory, or maybe a recording. It showed a younger version of Jack, about 12 years old, standing in a field, holding a book. Jack's eyes widened. "That's me, back on Earth," he whispered. He remembered that day. He had found an old storybook in a junk shop. It was torn and dusty, but he had loved it. He used to read it under a tree near his home. How did the crystal know? Just then, Sally appeared, silent as always. She stood beside his desk, watching the memory. "You loved that story," she said softly. "The boy who traveled through the stars to find his lost sister." Jack turned to her, shocked. "You've seen this memory." She nodded. "Yes, you left an echo in the archives. I've never shared that memory with anyone. Not online. Not in any file," Jack said. Celia smiled gently. "Some memories are not stored in machines. They live in your aura, your thoughts. Certain crystals can feel them." Jack leaned back, trying to understand. "So you've been reading my thoughts?" "Not reading," she said quickly. "Just listening. With permission, of course." "I never gave permission." Celia lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry. I was curious. You shine brighter than others. I noticed it the day you arrived." Jack sighed, but he wasn't angry. He was confused, maybe a little surprised, but not scared. "I don't get it," he said. "Why me? There are thousands of workers here." "You ask questions," Celia replied. "Real ones. Not just about books or files, but about life, about people, about truth." She looked at him, her large eyes full of something Jack couldn't name. "Also, you smile when you're alone," she added. Jack chuckled awkwardly. "That's not a reason." "It is to me." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jack asked, "Is this what you do all day? Watch people's memories?" "No, only special ones," she said. "Most records are boring. You, Jack Raymond, are not boring." He looked at her carefully. "You keep saying strange things like that. Almost like you're trying to say more." Celia tilted her head. "Is that how humans describe interest? Strange." Jack grinned. "Sometimes, especially when someone knows everything about you before you even say hello." Celia laughed quietly. It was a soft, sweet sound. "Then I will stop knowing. Maybe you can tell me instead." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to talk about myself?" She nodded. "Yes. I would like to know the human way. Slowly. With words. Not through crystals." Jack felt a warm feeling in his chest. He had never met anyone like her. So gentle, so strange, and yet so interested in him. Not his job, not his skills. "All right," he said. "You go first, though. Tell me something about you." Celia looked surprised. "No one ever asks me that." "Well, I'm asking." She thought for a moment, then said, "I joined the archives when I was very young. My people age slowly, but we learn fast. I have read over 1 million records. But until you came, I had never heard Earth music. Music? Jack asked. Yes. You were humming once. I followed the sound. It stayed in my mind for days. Jack chuckled. It was just an old song. It made me feel something I couldn't name. That is rare. Jack looked at her and said, maybe we can listen to more songs together. Celia smiled again, brighter this time. I would like that very much. Before she walked away, she leaned slightly closer and whispered, and next time, you must tell me more about that bicycle accident. Jack blinked. You're still spying. She stepped back, pretending to be serious. No, just remembering. As she disappeared between the tall archive shelves, Jack sat back in his chair. She knew his past, had seen his memories, and somehow still wanted to know him more. And now she wanted to start fresh, learn the human way. Jack picked up the crystal and held it tightly. He didn't know what would happen next. But he was beginning to think, maybe, just maybe, this little alien librarian wasn't just curious. She liked him. Jack had worked in the Grand Multispecies Archive for almost 2 weeks now. Most days followed a peaceful routine, sorting ancient scrolls, scanning memory crystals, and uploading translations. But ever since he met Celia, the tiny alien librarian with quiet footsteps and deep eyes, things didn't feel so simple anymore. She always seemed to appear just when he was thinking about her. She would make small comments about his past, or ask strange questions about his emotions. And lately, she smiled more often when they talked. Today, Jack was assigned to Section Delta 7, one of the oldest parts of the library. It was rarely visited. The lights were dimmer, and the air smelled of aged paper and ancient metals. The walls were lined with large sealed drawers, glowing slightly with unread symbols. He walked down the long corridor alone, holding a scanner in one hand and a data tablet in the other. As he turned a corner, something caught his attention. A large doorway, heavy and metallic, with a strange symbol above it, a spiral wrapped in wings. Jack had never seen this door before, and it wasn't on his map. He approached it slowly. There was no handle, just a panel with soft light. His fingers hovered over the panel. Probably just storage, he muttered to himself. But before he could touch it, a voice behind him whispered, "You're not supposed to be here." Jack turned fast. It was Celia. She looked calm, but her eyes were serious. "That section is restricted." Jack stepped back. "Sorry, I didn't know. The door just pulled my attention." Celia walked closer. "It does that, especially to humans." Jack frowned. "Why?" She hesitated, then said, "Because something inside remembers you." Jack blinked. "Remembers me?" She nodded. "This section holds living records, not just books or data, but objects that hold memories, emotions, pieces of people. Some react to those who are connected to them." Jack's heart beat faster. "And you think one of them is linked to me?" Celia looked away. "Yes, that's why I came. I knew you would feel it soon." Jack stared at the door. "Then let me in. I want to see." She hesitated again. "It's not safe for most species, but you might be different." With a deep breath, she reached into her robe and pulled out a small round device. She pressed it against the door panel. The metal surface rippled like water, then slid open with a soft hum. Inside, the room was quiet and cold. Crystals floated in the air, each glowing faintly. Some pulsed like heartbeats. Others flickered like fireflies. At the center was a pedestal holding a silver orb, surrounded by thin rings that spun slowly on their own. As Jack stepped forward, the orb glowed bright gold. Celia gasped. "It reacted to you." Jack moved closer. The orb lit up brighter, and images formed in the air, blurry at first, then clearer. He saw a man who looked just like him, wearing explorer gear, standing on a cliff under twin moons. The man was holding hands with a short alien figure, who looked exactly like Celia. Jack felt dizzy. "That's me," he whispered. "No," Celia said softly. "But also, yes, it is someone who shares your spirit, a version of you that once lived in a time fold. A forgotten history." Jack turned to her, stunned. "Are you saying I've been here before?" She nodded. "Not in this body. But this soul, it seems familiar." Jack took a step back. "How do you know all this?" Celia looked down. "Because I was there, in that fold of time. I remember him." Jack stared at her, feeling a mix of shock and wonder. "Then why didn't you say anything before?" "I didn't want to confuse you," she whispered. "But now the record has opened. You had to see it for yourself." Jack sat down slowly on the cold floor. "This is too much." Celia came closer and gently sat beside him. "You don't need to understand everything now." He looked at her. "But you knew all along." She nodded slowly. "I watched your face the first time you arrived. I hoped it was you. And when you smiled, I knew." There was silence between them for a moment. Then Jack asked, did the other me? And you?" Celia blushed faintly, her skin glowing softly. "Yes, we shared something. Something kind. Something close." Jack looked at the orb again, still shining in gold. "And now?" "That's your choice," she said quietly. Jack didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. But deep inside, something familiar stirred. Maybe the past wasn't lost after all. Maybe some stories found their way back. And maybe, just maybe, this little alien librarian was part of his story. Again. Jack couldn't sleep that night. He lay in his small room on the space station, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts kept going back to the silver orb, the glowing images, and Celia's words. I remember him." She had said it with such softness, like the memory still lived in her heart. Jack had never believed in time folds, soul echoes, or anything like that. He was a facts and reason kind of person. But now, after seeing that glowing orb and the version of himself holding Celia's hand, he wasn't so sure. The next morning, he found himself walking toward the archives earlier than usual. He didn't know what he was going to say to her, but he knew he had to see her. The library was quiet again. A few alien scholars floated by, nodding politely. Jack moved through the aisles until he reached the section where Celia usually worked. She was already there, standing beside a floating scanner, organizing memory crystals with slow, careful hands. Jack stopped a few steps away. "Celia." She turned gently, as if she had been expecting him. "Good morning, Jack." He took a breath. "Can we talk?" She gave a small nod and guided him to a corner of the archive where two soft seats were placed under a glowing blue lamp. They sat down. Jack looked at her, unsure how to begin. "What I saw yesterday, it felt real." "It was," Celia said softly. "But how? I've never lived that life. I've never stood on those cliffs. Yet it felt like it was part of me." Celia nodded. "It is not always about memory. Sometimes it is about energy, spirit. The soul carries echoes of what was." Jack leaned forward. "That person, the other version of me, he was close to you." "Yes," she whispered. "We met by chance. He helped me save a memory vault during a great storm. We spent time together. He asked questions. He made me laugh, just like you do now." Jack smiled gently. "So, what happened to him?" Celia looked down. "He disappeared. Time folds are not stable. One day, he was gone. No goodbye. No final moment. Only silence." Jack felt something stir inside his chest, a kind of sadness that didn't fully belong to him, but still felt real. "I'm sorry," he said. "You don't need to be," she replied. "You are not him. And yet, you are." They sat in silence again. The hum of the archive filled the space around them. Jack looked at her, studying her face. She was quiet, but not cold. Small, but full of presence. She always seemed to know more than she said. "Why did you show me that memory now?" he asked. Celia thought for a moment. "Because you were ready. I could sense it. And because I wanted to know if something remained." "Something?" Jack asked. Celia met his eyes. A connection. Jack's heart beat faster. He cleared his throat. "You know, humans usually don't believe in fate. At least I didn't." "And now?" she asked. "I don't know," Jack said with a small laugh. "But I feel like I'm part of something bigger. Like I've stepped into a story that started long before I arrived." Celia smiled gently. "That is a beautiful feeling. Don't be afraid of it." Jack nodded slowly. "And what about us? Is there still something left from before?" Celia leaned closer. "That is not for the past to decide. It is for us to create now." Jack looked into her eyes. He didn't need memories or time folds to tell him how he felt. He just liked her, her kindness, her mystery, her strange little comments, and the way she always showed up when he needed her. "I'd like to spend more time with you," he said. Celia's face lit up, her eyes shining. "Then let us write new pages together." Jack laughed. "You really do talk like a librarian." She tilted her head playfully. "And you really do talk like a curious human." As they stood up, Celia reached into her robe and pulled out a small silver token. "This is a guide crystal," she said. "It will let you visit the living records again, if you ever feel the past calling." Jack accepted it and looked at her. "What if I just want to see you again?" Celia smiled. "Then you don't need a crystal. You just need to come find me." Jack nodded. He turned to leave but paused. "Celia." "Yes. That music you heard from me before. I can show you more. Real Earth music." "I would like that," she said. And as Jack walked away, he felt something warm inside. Not confusion. Not fear. Hope. Maybe it wasn't just about who he was before. Maybe this story was really about who they could become, together. The Grand Multispecies Archive was supposed to be peaceful, a place where silence lived and knowledge flowed like calm rivers. But now, strange whispers moved through its long halls. Something was different. Something was changing. And the center of it all was Jack. It began with the glowing orb. After Jack had entered the living records room, the security logs picked up the energy surge. A memory object reacting so strongly to one visitor had not happened in over 100 years. The Council of Station Elders noticed. That morning, while Jack was sipping warm tea in his work area, two tall alien figures approached. They wore long robes marked with silver lines, the symbol of the Council of Records. One of them, a tall, thin being with golden eyes, spoke in a soft but firm voice. "Human Jack Raymond, the Council requests your presence." Jack stood up slowly. "Is something wrong?" "You entered a restricted section," the other figure said. "You must answer questions." Jack glanced around, hoping to see Celia, but she was nowhere in sight. He followed them through the archive halls, past ancient statues and glowing knowledge crystals, until they reached a wide chamber with round seats. In the center was a glowing floor, a memory projector. The council members sat in silence, eyes fixed on Jack. A voice echoed from above. "Explain why you entered the living records room." Jack stood straight. "I didn't know it was restricted. I just felt something calling me." And then Celia came. She opened the door. There was a pause. Celia broke protocol. The voice asked. Jack hesitated. "She said the record inside might be connected to me." Whispers spread among the council. One member leaned forward. "Do you believe this? Connection is real." Jack nodded. "I saw someone who looked like me. In a different time. With her. And you believe these memories belong to you?" "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But they felt real. I can't explain it. I only know I didn't feel afraid. I felt Known. The council sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, the elder with golden eyes spoke. Celia has been suspended from archive access until this matter is reviewed. Jack's eyes widened. What? No, she didn't do anything wrong. She opened a forbidden door, the elder replied. That breaks the archive code. She did it for me, Jack said, because the record called to me. You can't blame her for something I asked to see. It does not matter, another counselor said. We must protect the balance of memory. Even feelings must follow rules. Jack's hands tightened into fists, but he stayed calm. Then let me speak to her, please. The council was silent. Then the elder gave a small nod. You may see her, but only once. After that, you return to your duties. Jack was led to a quiet room near the top of the library dome. It was small, with a window showing stars beyond the glass. Celia sat alone, her teal robe folded neatly beside her. She looked up when Jack entered. I heard, she said softly. I tried to stop them, Jack replied. They blamed you for everything. Celia smiled gently. It's all right. I knew the risk. Jack walked closer. Why did you do it, Celia? Why break the rule? She looked at him, her dark eyes full of quiet emotion. Because I couldn't watch you walk past that door again. Not when the record was calling to you. Not when I remembered what we once shared. Jack sat beside her. You could get removed from the archives. I know. And you still think it was worth it. Celia reached out and gently touched the crystal pendant hanging from her neck. Some moments are more important than rules. Jack looked at her carefully. She was small, quiet, and always full of mystery, but never cold, never cruel. He took a deep breath. I want to help you. Tell the council what really happened. Show them you were right. Celia shook her head. The council doesn't follow feelings. They follow order. But there is another way. Jack leaned in. What way? She pulled out a tiny silver cube. This is a personal memory record. I saved something inside. Not from the archive. From us. She handed it to him. When the time is right, she said, you will know what to do with it. Jack held the cube tightly. You're trusting me with this. Yes, Celia said, because even if they don't believe the past, maybe you can shape the future. Jack looked at her for a long time. Then, without thinking, he placed a hand gently over hers. I'm not going anywhere, he said. And though the stars outside kept shining cold and distant, in that quiet room, a warm connection remained, growing stronger, one moment at a time. The days after Jack's conversation with the council felt strange. The air in the library seemed heavier, quieter. He could feel the weight of their decisions hanging over him, especially the uncertainty surrounding Celia. The council had suspended her access to the archives. She was no longer allowed to oversee the records, and the penalty could last for weeks, if not longer. Jack knew it wasn't fair. She had only opened the door because she had cared. She had only done it because she had seen something in him that others didn't. It wasn't long before Jack found himself at the archive entrance once more, walking toward the section he knew he wasn't supposed to visit. He still didn't know exactly why he was doing it. Maybe it was the desire to feel closer to the strange, alien memories. Maybe it was because of the small crystal cube Celia had given him. Maybe it was because of her. As he entered the archive room, Jack felt the familiar hum of the system, the quiet presence of millions of records, each holding stories and secrets from countless worlds. But today, it felt different. Today, Jack wasn't here to work. He wasn't here to file or sort or translate. He was here for something else entirely. Jack. He turned to see Celia standing in the shadows of the shelves. She looked just as she always did, small, calm, but with that spark in her eyes that always made Jack wonder what she was thinking. Celia, he said, walking toward her. I thought I'd find you here. She nodded slightly. I wanted to talk to you. Away from the council. Away from everything else. Jack could feel the tension in the air. thick and heavy between them. What happened to the archives? What happened to you? Celia sighed, her eyes softening. I've spent most of my life studying knowledge, learning things I can't always understand, but what I didn't expect was to feel this way. She paused, her voice quiet. You make me think about the world differently, about everything I've ever known, even the rules that have governed me. Jack's heart beat faster. He had suspected something, but hearing her say it out loud made it feel more real. You've never been like this with anyone else, have you? He asked. Celia's expression softened. No, you're the first human I've met who asks the right questions. The first one who makes me want to break the rules. Jack smiled, his chest light. I don't want to be a problem. He stopped himself. I just don't want to lose you. Celia looked down at her feet. Maybe that's the problem. Jack, maybe. I've already lost what I thought I had. She lifted her head to meet his gaze. But I'm not ready to lose you. Jack stepped closer, feeling the new warmth inside him. He took a deep breath. Then we have to decide what comes next. Do we walk away from all this, or do we stay and see what happens? Celia's eyes searched his face, as if trying to read something deeper. You know that staying comes with consequences. The council won't approve of your choice. They won't let me return to my post. I may never have access to the archives again. Jack nodded slowly. I know. But I'm asking you, Celia, do you want to stay? Do you want to see what happens if we try? Celia smiled softly, and Jack could see the doubt in her eyes slowly fade. Yes, she said. I do. They stood there for a long moment, silent but not uncomfortable. The weight of the decision hung between them, but Jack felt a certain clarity in the air. It wasn't just about the records or the rules anymore. It wasn't about the council or their decisions. It was about them. About the connection they had already shared, and the one they could create. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out the small silver cube that Celia had given him. He held it up, letting the soft glow reflect in her eyes. What is this? Celia asked. Jack looked at her, his heart racing. I think it's time to open it. Celia took the cube gently from his hand, and with a small gesture, the crystal lit up, projecting a map of glowing lines in the air between them. It wasn't a map of the galaxy, or even of the archive. It was something different, a connection. It's the map of the path we're about to walk, Celia said softly. Together. Jack felt his breath catch. Is this really what you want? She nodded, smiling. I've never wanted anything more. Jack took a deep breath, watching the glowing lines shift and change in front of them. They were both part of something bigger now. Not just the archive, not just the council, but something new, something they could build together, step by step. With a final look at her, Jack said softly, Then, let's make the most of it. The days that followed were strange, but Jack couldn't bring himself to care. After all the uncertainty, after the council's rules and a quiet tension between him and Celia, things were finally becoming clear. Jack had made his choice. He'd chosen Celia. They spent the next few days walking through the archive together. There were still whispers in the halls, and the council's disapproval lingered like a shadow over their every move. But the more Jack worked beside Celia, the more he realized that none of that mattered. There were bigger things at play now, things that neither of them could ignore. It wasn't long before Jack stopped looking over his shoulder. He stopped worrying about what the council might do. He focused on the quiet moments with Celia. He started understanding her in ways he never had before. And Celia, she had changed too. The walls around her, those walls built by years of rules, responsibilities, and cold logic, were slowly coming down. Jack saw it in the way she smiled at him when no one was around, in the way she now lingered just a little longer in conversations. She wasn't just the librarian anymore. She was someone he could trust, someone he could rely on. One evening, as the stars outside the station began to shimmer brightly in the sky, Jack found himself once again in the memory hall, standing beside the glowing living records. Celia was beside him, sorting through the last of the archived records. But this time, there was no rush. There was no pressure from the council. This time, it was just the two of them, surrounded by centuries of knowledge. "What are you thinking?" Celia asked, her voice gentle as she turned toward him. Jack smiled, his thoughts momentarily drifting to the past. "I'm thinking about all the things I didn't know. About all the things I used to be afraid of." Celia raised an eyebrow. "Afraid?" He nodded. "I was afraid of change. I was afraid of the unknown. I thought I had to follow the rules to be safe, to be normal." "Normal?" Celia asked, her tone amused. "What is normal?" Jack chuckled. "I don't really know anymore. I guess it's just what everyone else expects you to be." "And what do you expect of yourself?" she asked softly. Jack paused, thinking about her question. It was one he hadn't considered before. What did he expect of himself now? What did he want? He turned toward Celia, meeting her eyes. "I expect to keep learning, to keep exploring, and to stay close to you." Celia smiled. "Then you are on the right path, Jack Raymond." A warm silence fell between them as they stood there, the soft hum of the archives surrounding them. Jack realized something in that moment, something he hadn't fully understood before. Celia wasn't just a librarian. She wasn't just an alien. She was part of his story, part of his journey. "And what about you?" Jack asked, turning the question back on her. "What do you want?" Celia took a deep breath, her gaze softening. "I want to make things right, to find balance between the old ways and the new. But most of all," she hesitated, her eyes meeting his once again, "I want to make memories, with you." Jack's heart beat a little faster, and he took her hand in his. "Then let's make them," he said, his voice steady and sure. They stood there for a moment longer, the weight of their words hanging in the air, as if the universe itself was giving them a silent approval. Jack knew there were still many questions ahead. He knew there would be challenges, that the council might never fully understand their connection, that there would always be parts of the galaxy it couldn't be explained. But none of that mattered now. They were together, and that was enough. As they walked side by side toward the central hall, Jack couldn't help but feel like this was just the beginning of something incredible. They were both part of a larger story now, a story not bound by rules, not dictated by others' expectations. And as they moved forward, Jack realized that he wasn't just part of the human race anymore. He was part of something bigger, something that spanned the stars and reached across time itself. With Celia by his side, anything felt possible.